Okay, right. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, some thanks. Thank you very much to mHabitat for hosting the event. Thanks to Robbie for helping to organise it. And thank you very much indeed to all the speakers for donating their time and thoughts and ideas around this, I think, brave and vital topic. So I think this is the aim of this event really, is to take an honest look at the future that we're facing as a society. And really it's a reframing exercise. I think this is on the edge of the mainstream narrative at the moment, looking at the future as a resilience issue rather than trying to maintain the life that we've got very much used to. COVID is really providing a window for doing some good thinking around this as a change opportunity as well. So it's really excellent timing if you look at it in that way. So yeah, the basic idea is I'm going to give like a big picture introduction, and then we'll have a whole bunch of speakers doing a quick dive into their areas, looking at what can tech do for societal resilience in those areas. And this is an emerging topic. I work at NHS Digital as sustainability manager, but my slide pack doesn't represent formal NHS Digital views, as it's such an emerging narrative. So really the idea is to get people together to start to have a think about this topic and to, you know, work out who we need to talk to, what the big risks and collaboration opportunities are to start creating a narrative around tech for societal resilience. So a little bit about me. I'm a chartered environmentalist with a 20-year sustainability career. I've had previously lots of success delivering incremental sustainability improvement around the built estate, travel, waste, energy, that kind of stuff. But I had a kind of moment about a year or so ago where I kind of just realised that all the stuff that I'd been working on for many, many years was not really working, you know. So, and really started to think about the need for resilience. So this brought me to this conclusion, really, the classic Brundtland definition. I'm not going to read it word for word, but you'll have all seen it many times before. I don't think we can say that we've been doing either of these things, meeting the needs of the present for most people, and we're certainly not helping to meet the needs of future generations either. So as a society, we've got dangerous addictions to fossil fuels, consumerism, increasing shareholder profit, and increasingly nationalism. It's almost a bit like an alcoholic needing to quit drinking before they do too much damage to their body. You know, given the challenges that we're facing, the real question at the moment, I think, is what does a good future look like for society, and how can we create a map to get there? And specifically with this event, what role will tech and digital have in that process? The range of societal mega threats that we're facing is huge. I focus on climate a bit in this introductory narrative due to my professional focus, but all things need to be considered. You know, so looking at the climate thing, climate change is now. The Australian wildfires were absolutely terrifying, I think. They feel like years ago now with COVID, but they're only a few months ago. But they're like glimpsing into a future of our kids' lives if things don't go as well as they could do. The current trajectory is this kind of outcome. 2019 was the highest ever year of carbon emissions, with less than 10 years left at current emissions rates before we use up the safe carbon budget. And carbon's a global issue. Therefore, cutting carbon is only a resilience action if everyone does it. Locally, cutting carbon is not going to have an impact. So the key thing in this area is to be part of that conversation for global system change. So looking at things through this resilience frame, it's brave, it's honest, it's precautionary, and I think it's the right thing to be thinking about at the moment. But it's not easy. So, you know, I've put this up. The change curve, you know, everyone's in denial about the difficulties that we're facing, no matter how open you are to them as a person. You know, there's me and many other people rattling around that kind of U-bend at the bottom there, trying to work out what the best way out of this scenario is. But the thing is, we need to face up to it. We need to kind of realise what's going to happen at current trajectory, because this is what it looks like from a climate perspective, the 4-degree world. This is current trajectory for 2100, where the tropics gets desertified. that's where most of the food's grown. So even though we can still live in the UK, you can see we're green there, where are we going to get all our food from? When I look at a map like this, I just see chaos, starvation, migration, war. It's not a good outcome. So, and we have to really kind of internalize this challenge before we can start to really move on. And that's just the climate thing. So in terms of the mega trends that we're facing, or mega threats we could call them, there are many, you know, demographics, we've got aging populations, how we're going to deal with that, shifts in global economic power, inequality, financial system instability, urbanization, disconnection from nature. You know, for me, there's a really interesting thing around this topic around digitization. Is so removed from nature. Is there an opportunity here to actually connect people back to nature a bit more in some way? Resources, specifically in digital, we're probably thinking about critical raw materials and rare earths, and then technological breakthroughs are interesting as well. You know, are they going to be good or bad? So artificial intelligence, what, you know, there's a whole raft of dangers that we need to map in here. So it's not simple that digital breakthroughs are always going to help. We need to be really careful about how we manage them. So from a kind of risk-based approach, the World Economic Forum does some useful thinking around with their annual global risks report. So there's one of their infographics there on long-term risk outlook. Many of them are climate related. Some of them are a bit more kind of computery, cyber, social instability as well. So all in all, it's quite troubling scenario, but, you know, can we think about it another way? Is it a crisis, or could we use this as an opportunity? You know, especially with this kind of break in normality from the COVID experience, there's a real opportunity to be thinking about what can we do differently in future? How can we create a new normal that is going to be better for everyone, better for people, better for planet? And that's, I think, a vital conversation. The future visioning is a big part of this. I don't know if anyone saw that new book from Christiana Figueres, the lady who pulled together the Paris 2015 agreements called The Future We Choose, but it's kind of offsetting negative and positive future visions, I think, is absolutely crucial in terms of trying to work out how to pull people into this kind of conversation. So this slide here is a bit of work from Arup, who have created 4 futures based on whether planetary health and societal conditions go up or down. I'll leave you to Google it and read it, but it's an interesting bit of storytelling. And I think much of this conversation actually now is about storytelling. And for me, this is a really interesting kind of way into that topic, which is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So right up from physiological and safety needs, which are going to be very much threatened by things like climate breakdown, through to the higher level needs of love and belonging, you know, your social networks, esteem, how you see yourself, and self-actualization, are you achieving things? You know, there's a real, I think it's certainly true that the challenges we're going to face are going to threaten those lower level needs, but, you know, how can we twist it, and how can we get new opportunities to offer more in those higher level needs? It's all getting quite ethereal, but I think it's this kind of conversation which is important, is in terms of a framing exercise around this topic. And people have been doing this kind of stuff already. So I don't know if how many of you have heard of the Transition Network, but they're really, this was based around peak oil and climate change and how to get ready for it. It's built out of applying permaculture through to a city scale, local community scale, and thinking about local community scale resilience. And I think there's a huge amount of learning here. So, you know, how can digital systems enable community resilience is a fantastically interesting question, and one we could really dive into. There's some great methodologies as well. So this is the donut from Kate Raworth, that she looks at how to create a fair and safe society. So basically, how can you meet people's social foundational requirements without going through the planetary boundaries or the ecological ceiling? You know, great book if you haven't read it. And then some really interesting stuff from around circular economy as well, from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So that's a classic butterfly diagram if you've not seen it before, but that looks at more a kind of material resilience perspective. But again, fantastically inspiring visions for a sustainable future that, you know, need to be really leveraged. But what we're here today to think about is this tech for resilience interface. I love this picture because it kind of nests digital within ecological, and it's so easy to forget that that's the way around, that it really is. It's so easy to get lost in the digital. So that's us for today. And then, you know, of course, this COVID thing's huge. Like, how do we start to twist the conversations around from dealing with this current little emergency that we've got to, you know, the really big problems that are coming our way. In terms of my work, my normal work, NHS Digital, we've got, this is some of the response that they've had to do. So they're bringing a lot of resilience to the tech sector, to the health tech sector in terms of resilience to pandemic events. So we've done all kinds of stuff there. This is just a snapshot from their external web pages that you can see. So loads of stuff around the app, shielded patients, all kinds of stuff, really quick change that we've had to make. And there's been more within the health sector. So it's been lots and lots of stuff around scaling up telehealth. So primary care doctors have pretty much all switched to virtually all digital appointments now, which was in the long-term plan, but has happened at the drop of a hat off the back of COVID. The NHS app has scaled up massively. The apps library is really interesting, and this gets a bit into like health inequality and ill health prevention. How can people get home-based treatment and recommended life things on their phone? And then Babylon, there's a great example there of kind of AI triage and stuff, like a step into a future of a different way of doing doctor services that are much lower impact environmentally. But it's so important to remember that COVID actually, and this is actually an impact of the ecological emergency. So squeezing bats' habitats, which went into pangolins and then into humans. So it's a direct sustainability issue, and I think we kind of falter if we don't reference that. So that's a public health issue, and many of the others public health issues, all of climate breakdown exist as well. So you know, through from air pollution, floods, energy security for digital systems related to flooding is a really important question around resilience. Pandemic, obviously, as we're facing at the moment, and those really kind of awful societal issues around food, water and migration all need to kind of go into the mix here. You know, so I think we need to be thinking about how we're going to stress test our systems against those other range of events. Especially, what about stress testing against multi-breadbasket failure in crop systems, that kind of thing. And we need to make sure our systems fail safe during emergencies. So when the next pandemic or other big issue happens, we don't start creating more damage by having to react quickly without thinking about what the after effects are going to be. Just to kind of, just before I wrap up and hand on, we are going to just a few inspiring little examples of resilient tech and resilience things, which, so Microsoft AI for Earth, fantastically exciting initiative looking at how to do things like effectively grow crops in areas where climate change is happening more rapidly and people aren't sure what to plant, you know, really, really interesting. Fairphone, a great example of circular economy in action, a truly circular end user device, which is well worth checking out. Then Food Cloud, I could have picked any, but that's just an example of an app-based food sharing system. We waste a third of food. That I heard a stat the other day, an area the size of China gets used every year to grow food that gets thrown away. Quite astounding. So how do we kind of make that system more resilient? And then a little nod to our friends over at the ODI in Leeds, and their flood hack series. So how they're using IoT systems to monitor for flooding. So some really great examples out there, and these are the kind of people that we need to be talking to build this broader narrative. And then I just couldn't resist putting our favourite environmental activist up there. But I love this quote: "Change is coming, whether you like it or not." I think it sums it up for me. And I heard another nice analogy recently about, it's almost like the human race is in a car at 100 miles an hour driving towards a wall, and we're inside the braking distance already. The question isn't whether we're going to stop in time, but it's going to be whether our airbags work and we can brake to enough speed not to do ourselves any damage. I think that kind of storytelling again is really, really powerful. So that's me, big picture framing. Hopefully it's been useful to kind of set into place what the other speakers are going to say. Just before I take any questions, the plan for the rest of the event is roughly 10 minutes per speaker, questions straight after each talk. So if you've got anything, put it in the chat box, please, and we'll pick it up at the end. We'll have a discussion session at the end, time allowing. If we don't, we've got a post-event survey going out anyway, which has got the kind of key questions in it, which would be covered in the discussion session. And we're looking to create a forum or working group or collaboration of people who are wanting to talk about this kind of stuff, with a view to kind of pulling together a thought piece to frame this topic for decision makers. So we will be, the event's getting recorded, and we'll be sharing the slides and etc. afterwards. So watch out for them. That's it from me. I don't know if anyone's got any immediate questions, or I can hand over to Adam.